Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to start today's video off by sharing a few words that I feel really sum up what I'm about to talk about today. So without further ado, fluidity of the soul. Sacrality nests within the fluidity of the soul, not defined nor confined by a vessel, not even by the human experience itself, though much of it out of our control. Whether rooted in logic or in vivid daydreams, we're all craftsmen chipping away at what looks like impenetrable stone, but what is actually an ocean. To be defined by nothing but what you decide is to live within the truth of the human form and, indeed, the true nature of the soul. Our ever-shifting faces, when formed by honesty, are all versions, refractions, constellations of us. It's in our soul's contract to shift with the passing days, seasons, even hours or minutes. It's evolution, and it's been happening since the dawn of time. I wrote that piece after spending a morning reading Women Who Run with the Wolves. I recently restarted this. I actually bought this in a really cute shop in New York. It really stood out to me. I'd heard about it so many times before, and funnily enough, this copy is rather bizarre. It already looked quite old when I picked it up, and that's kind of why I gravitated towards it. I thought it looked really cool. But every single page I flipped has fallen out. So now I have to kind of clip it in place with a bulldog clip, otherwise I will lose all my pages. And I'm very scared to take this out with me because I feel like if I open it or it accidentally falls out of my bag, then the pages are just gonna spill everywhere and I'm never gonna be able to find them. So yes, it's a bizarre copy nonetheless. But I got inspired because it really touches on the wild nature of women. I extended that in my thoughts to the wild nature of human beings as a whole and how fluid we are in nature and how rigid we have decided to become as a society and how that doesn't align in any way with the way that we're biologically wired to live. We are supposed to be free to create, to learn, to grow, to be part of communities that feel suited to us, that we feel valued by, that we feel like we can provide value to. And a lot of the ways that we live and the constructs that we live in or choose to live in, they just don't align with this higher truth of who we are. And I mean, what do I know? I'm just trying to figure out life myself, but if anything, I really want to touch on these points that I've thought about in case any of you out there have been thinking about the same thing, so that we can share some thoughts and have open dialogue about it. I think that would be really special. It took me so long to sit down to film today because it's that time of the month and it hit me hard today. I've been bedridden in so much pain, but I was like, no, I really want to talk about this today before the ideas float out of my brain. So here we are, we're fighting through. I've got 5 different points that I want to cover that align with pretty much what you just heard. The first thing is the rules that we create for ourselves. I think it's quite funny that we make up all of these unconscious rules that just surface out of nowhere. I can't relax until I've done X, Y, Z, or I can't do this unless da da da. And of course, discipline is a great thing to have in life. We need discipline to be productive, but we also need to go back and align that with our intuition. I think we have a habit, and me especially, of creating disharmony in life because you're making rules and following the rules that you've created or rules that are part of a societal construct, but we're not counterbalancing that with a sense of intuition, a sense of flow, and a sense of listening to your body, the season of life, reading the room type vibe. We're just not doing it, and that can cause mass disharmony, mass unbalanced, ungrounded energy in the body, and it can cause us to feel burnt out, exhausted, all kinds of things that we feel we just have no control over. So I think we need to go back and check on some of the rules that we have for ourselves and ask ourselves why we actually have those rules in place. Is it productive Or is it counterintuitive? I think an example of a good rule is don't scroll on social media first thing in the morning. I think that's a great rule to have. It lowers our fight or flight response. It lets us ease into the day. It's not overloading your brain first thing in the morning with so many subliminals, so many different messages that we just don't need. Rules like that: meditate before you go on your phone. Have a couple of things that you do to start the day before you even touch your phone. Things like that are super important, but when it comes to taking up a hobby or making time for yourself, I think those should be more fluid. I think that we should be a little less hard on ourselves sometimes and understand that everything is ever shifting. Life is a constant flow, and time doesn't stop, right? Time doesn't halt itself, get things together and keep moving forward. Time just goes on. So just like time goes on and nature goes on and repairs and heals, we too must flow. We too must continue. And it's not to say that we should brush aside our emotions or anything like that. It's more just to say that yes, things arise, but things also leave. This too shall pass, kind of thing. So when things arise, learn to feel and sit back and become a witness. And I think the best way to do this is through practicing meditation. And another thing, meditation itself has gained all of these rules that just don't make sense. One of them, which was the biggest one that got squashed ages ago, was the fact that you have to clear your mind, wipe your mind like a hard drive in order to get into meditation and have it be successful. I mean, as long as you're showing up in the first place and you sit, even if it's just for a couple of minutes, you have succeeded. It may not be the best meditation you've ever had, but you've succeeded in showing up for yourself, and you can work with that. You can grow from that. If you are trying to come at something like meditation, perfect straight A's every time, let's sit down for 30 minutes every single day and do this, odds are you're probably never going to sit down and meditate. You might do it once and that's probably going to be it, or a couple of times, and there's going to be an end to that, because you're striving for perfection, and that's something that we already do too much of. If you can just sit, you don't even have to be still. That's a rule that can be broken. You can move, you can meditate with your eyes open, you can meditate while you're walking, while you're painting, while you're reading. There's so many different ways to do it, and it's not defined by anything, because it's silly to put so many rules on an experience that is so unique, so personal. No one can get inside your brain and see what you're seeing and what you're experiencing during that sacred practice. So why should you then put rules on it that just don't even make any sense? And they're not providing any value. They're just kind of putting you in a box that's becoming gradually more and more claustrophobic. So, or I guess, I don't know, putting you in a box that's just gradually going tighter and tighter and tighter until, yes, you feel claustrophobic and you are unable to carry out these practices anymore. Just aligning with what rules you have, and it's all about inner listening. So when you're stopping yourself from doing something, ask yourself why. Is there a rule attached to it? What's going on a deeper level? And we should always be communicating with ourselves and listening to ourselves on a much deeper level than surface, because only you can access those parts of yourself. And if they're never accessed, we start to gather problems that seem to have no solution, emotions that seem to have no sense to them, lash outs that seem to be, strung to nothing. Life can very quickly become confusing, frustrating, annoying, all of the above. Here's a rule that I used to have for myself. I have so many books, journals, so many things that I've accumulated over the years. I have more. Okay, so these are just a few of the journals that I have scattered around my place that I've had for years and years of my life. Some of them I've filled, others I haven't. Some have weird sparse areas in them. In amongst that whole collection, I for so long had a journal for different things, and they would all have their own things, and I could only write in X journal for X and Y for Y, and that was it. I didn't realize for a long time But I recently realized how creatively stifling that is to me personally. I mean, to other people, it could work a treat. But to me, I thought it was working really well for me, but I actually realized that it is very creatively stifling. And I thought to myself, why do I have that rule in the first place? Because when I go back, and I think this spurred on because when I went to the Gold Coast to visit my family, I was looking through all of my old journals and I wasn't thinking, oh, this is my everyday to-do list journal, or this is my poetry journal, or this is my art journal. I was just thinking, this is an old relic that I've fished out from an old drawer and I want to look through because I'm nosy at my past self. And then I realized, why do I even have those rules of creating a book for everything when I can just kind of spread myself over all of the little journals and books that I have? That way, when I look back on it in future years, it's going to be more exciting too. Because I'm not just reading journal entries. I found a drawing, or I found a note, or a shopping list, or just some kind of thing. From there, I just started whatever book I have in front of me, whatever idea that's in my brain, it'll come out. And it doesn't matter if it's the wrong journal. There is no wrong journal. And that has been the most liberating thing ever. It's something to try out. And it was a useless rule that I didn't even know I had for so long. And I was like, that is ridiculous. So yeah, now all these journals are in, aside from this one is pretty much strictly my poetry journal, but I would not be opposed anymore. I have a drawing in here actually. And I never would have done that before. I was, this is my poetry journal. I could not possibly draw in a poetry journal. I'm like, out of all the crazy things that I've decided to do in my life, I can't even draw in a poetry journal because it's supposed to be a poetry journal. That's wild. That's crazy. I've started drawing it, and honestly, it adds value because it's interesting. When I flip through this later on in life, I'm gonna be stimulated again because I'm like, oh, there's a drawing. And I'm gonna be more inclined to flip through the whole thing because I'm interested to see what I've put in it. My kids are gonna be so stoked because there's more than just words in here. This one too, this one started out as what did this start out as? This started out as like a scrapbooky to-do list type journal. I even have a movie ticket in here. Shopping list, goals, schedule, manifestations, long-term goals. I mean, I decked this thing out and I had it so perfectly laid out. I had my content ideas for my old YouTube channel, how crazy, my schedule, my list for moving to Melbourne before I ended up moving to Melbourne. I had sticky notes that I had attached to my computer for a couple of weeks of things I had to do, and these are in here as well. And then it turned into a research journal because I was doing a social media marketing course. So this ended up becoming my study journal, and I laid out all of my notes. I'm a notes queen. I never went to uni, okay? So I was once sick for about 2 months, I was sick for a whole month with the flu, a chest infection, an eye infection, all the infections. I was doing Fright Night at Movie World and we were doing the Conjuring maze. I'm pretty certain it was cursed because I was bedridden for an entire month. It was the worst October of my life. Actually, the worst October of my life. But in that time, I did a whole social media marketing course, and I'm gonna put it down to the fact that I never went to uni and I just really like writing notes. I really like writing notes. I don't know what it is. I like making them look pretty. I geek out over it. I love sticky notes. I love pens. I'm actually really proud of this because I can go back through and it makes so much sense. Whereas like, I'm not gonna read something boring. I get bored so easily when reading things. I mean, you gotta hold my attention. This or this. I mean, colors, right? It's pretty, it's eye-catching, it's got diagrams and things in it. But this it's fun looking through this journal because it's taken so many different forms. Here it goes back to goals and content ideas and I'm getting to the end of it now. There's still a couple of things to add, but I very slowly accumulated things in this journal, and there's probably about like 3 years worth of stuff in here that I can flip through because there's so many time jumps. This one here has so many time jumps in it, and you would not think because it's the tiniest little book, but I have quite literally so many years worth of drawings, ideas, and things in here. This was more my drawing, scribbling journal. So I've got random paintings, and I was adamant that I was going to move to Oregon one day when I was younger. And that makes no sense to me now because, I mean, I'd love to visit, but it makes no sense to live there because it's too rainy for me. It gets too cold. I need beach weather at all times. Beach permitting weather at all times. I have tattoo ideas in here. I have all of my sketches in here. Goodness, just so many things. I mean, this is kind of like a poetry journal, but purely just through art. This one is a really special one that I got years ago from a Melbourne market. It's got manifestations in it. It's got some more drawings because this paper is really interesting. It's got paintings and poems and all kinds of things. And yeah, all of these are just so meaningful to me. I even have this one which goes through all of my social media ideas, all of the podcast ideas I've ever had, programs from my meditation teacher training. And these aren't even half of my collection of journals, especially with what I've already completed over the years. There's tons to look through. Every single part of my life has been documented either with video, with notes, with drawings, paintings. It's all there. It's all documented. There's nowhere to hide. All my secrets are out. Nat, if you're watching this, you need to keep all this safe, okay? Because there's tea, and that's all I'm gonna say. Just take a minute. I'm gonna message her after this. The next thing that's really helped me is kind of unbinding yourself from all of these things that we wrap ourselves up in every day. As I say, we're naturally all very hard on ourselves. We're our worst critics, no matter who you are. Everyone always has these thoughts of, am I good enough? What am I doing with myself? Am I doing good enough? All the thoughts just go crazy in our heads and stuff, and we all do it. One thing that we could all benefit from is having some kind of daily affirmation, whether you say it the minute you wake up or in the mirror, you've written it somewhere you're gonna see, whatever that is for you. The particular affirmation that I've been sitting with over the last few meditations that I've done has been, I'm not bound by my emotions. Emotions, especially when they are revolving around grief, anger, fear, can be so powerful, and they can feel very defining, and they can feel like they rule the roost. They dictate the day, they dictate how you speak, how you act, how you genuinely feel in your body, in your mind, in your soul. We are at all times unbound from our emotions. We can at any time choose to be a witness, to sit back and witness. We can't control circumstances in life, and it is natural and very, very warranted to feel how you need to feel in any given situation. But we do have control over how those emotions push us into different actions, different words, different states of being. And we need to be more mindful of that. And sometimes it's hard and it's not always perfect. It's by no means this is the fix, now go be a perfect, angelic human being and never say something out of pocket ever again. It's not the case. But if you're this mindful of it and you learn to catch yourself out and reel yourself back in, you're not going to go be a keyboard warrior on someone else's posts, or you're not going to sit in jealousy all day, or you're not going to sit in anger all day. You're going to have some kind of sense ticking on in your head to say, So just have something that gets you into that mode and reminds you of that. So for me, that's daily affirmations of waking up, having a nice morning routine where I can do my journaling. Even if I don't meditate that day, I might just sit and watch the outdoors, listen to sounds of nature, or just sit on the couch at the coffee table and just sit. That's it. I'll think about things like that. Not bound by my emotions. I have the control. What am I going to do with it? If you are becoming more of a witness to your emotions, you can actually start to see the source of the river flow. You can go back, you can travel upstream, and you can pinpoint, oh, okay, I'm feeling fear because I'm entering a chapter that is, I'm entering uncharted territory. So knowing that and identifying that, yeah, you're still going to feel the same way, but you'll have more of an insight, and there you'll be able to kind of work on it and just express it. It's like, how am I going to express this? Am I going to talk to someone? Am I going to write it down? Am I going to paint about it? Am I going to sing about it? Am I going to, whatever it is you like to do. Am I going to go play a sport? Am I going to go take up another Pilates class? What are you going to do with it? There's freedom in that, and there's creative expression in that, and it can turn even the ugliest emotions and horrible situations into something that is crafty and beneficial for the soul, chicken soup for the soul, and that moves into creative expression. There are so many modes of creativity, and going back to what I said with the journals and everything like that, that's a great mode of creativity because you can allow yourself to just make everything your own creative tapestry. You don't need certain books for certain things if you feel like that doesn't work for you. You don't need certain days of the week where this is my creative time. Let it flow. Life is unpredictable. Things in life are unpredictable. Let the balance be balanced. Let it flow. Let nature take its course. Let the days roll by as they will. Let the events occur because inevitably they will. Feel the emotions that are inevitable to feel, because if you don't feel them now, you're going to experience them tenfold later because they come back. All these things come back. Learn your lessons because they too come back. And just breathe. At the end of the day, we're here living this human experience, and it's a fluid thing. It's supposed to be fluid. When we become rigid, we become stagnant, and we gather all these things that we don't need. We kind of become hoarders, and all of a sudden something that used to be our temple is now a dump. It's a dumping ground of so many things that we don't need. And now, in order to search through and pick out the pieces of value and throw out the rest, it's going to take a long time and a lot of picking and choosing and a lot of backtracking to create a new landscape for yourself. So save yourself all of that rut. Save yourself all of that time, all of that turmoil, all of that road blockage, and just let yourself be a fluid being. You don't have to fit into a constant mold. You don't have to fit into a constant aesthetic in order to be valued, because you're a human being, and human beings are so deep. We're not surface level. There are so many layers to us that, the layers go so deep that a lot of people, they see this much of us. We've got this much to us, and we'll see all of this, and the people outside of us will only see this much. So when something from down here comes up here, all these people get really riled up being like, you've changed. Why? I miss the old you. Da 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 da. Why are you doing this? Why are you trying to be like XYZ? When really this part of you was always there. It's just taken its moment to come up to the surface and shine for a little while everything else kind of takes the back seat. So this is a very good reason why you should never listen to outward chatter of who people say that they want you to be, who they think you are, who they perceive you to be. And, if a lot of people around you are saying you've changed, you can ask yourself whether this change is a good thing or maybe something that needs work. But at the end of the day, you have to make that decision, and you have to monitor how you feel and where all of this shift has come from. Because as I said, change goes on. We're all energy, we're all part of nature, and change is a natural part of that. So I don't know where this stuff came from, where everyone got so antsy at everyone changing, or people saying, you can't change, da da da. You can change if you want to change, and people naturally do change. Naturally. Because we are fluid beings, the brain is malleable. When we get older, things are harder to rewire in the brain, but it's neuroplasticity. Yeah, welcome change. Change is absolutely more than welcome. As I said, it's evolution, and it's been going on since the dawn of time. It is as it has always been. So don't fight change, lean into change. Change is exciting and scary, and you know, when you're reading a story or when you're watching a movie or a TV show, it's exciting when things change because it's new, it's different, it's a new part of the narrative that's opened up. So embrace it as such, or at least try your best to, even though it's scary. Just do it in fear. let the fear guide you, transform that fear into excitement or curiosity, and trek onwards. The last thing I'm going to talk about is to just go with the flow. The whole premise of this video is the fluidity of human beings, the fluidity of the soul. And if you feel pulled to a certain thing that you haven't been pulled to before, explore it without putting any rules on it, without putting any expectations in it, without planning anything too much, without making something that should be fluid rigid. You don't want to freeze the lake. You want to keep it flowing, keep it moving. And if it's frozen, skate over the top of it. I don't know, figure it out. These are honestly just thoughts and feelings that I have personally had on the human experience, but as I've touched on in this video, everyone's human experience is so vastly different and unique, which is why me saying this is one thing. You can take it on board or take pieces that resonate with you and just leave whatever doesn't. I don't know, I'm just grateful if you've made it to this part of the video, and if you have, I really encourage you to leave your comments and your opinions, your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. What are your thoughts on this crazy human experience? Because we're all just figuring it out. No matter what age you are, no matter what you're doing or what your passions are, we're all just trying to figure it out, because boy, is it confusing, boy, is it scary, boy, is it painful and exciting. All the things. Boy, is it everything that you could possibly experience. And that in itself is something to be so insanely grateful for, especially if you're coming from a place where you have a lot of privileges that a lot of people don't have in life. Man, it's a crazy world, and I do hope that we can have a little bit more love in it and a little bit more open-mindedness and open-heartedness, but we shall see. Anyway, I love you with all my heart. Thank you so much for being here today and enjoying this video, or listening wherever you're listening to this, or whatever you're doing right now. I hope to see you back here soon. Take it easy on yourself, go with the flow, and I will talk to you very soon. Bachi. Ciao.